Alright then, from the slam bang T20, we now move to the ultimate pinnacle of the sport, and that is Test cricket. Yes, 6 days from now, India versus Australia will happen at the Oval. It is the culmination of 2 years of intense hard work, which has seen India qualify for the World Test Championship final for the second straight time. They will be really determined to ensure that they do not suffer this fate that happened to them in 2021, when India and New Zealand played out the inaugural ICC World Test Championship final, but the Black Caps held their own and they won by 8 wickets, and India were denied in a big way. 10 years ever since India won their last ICC event, this is probably their best chance. 10 years to break an ICC trophy drought. But for the World Test Championship also, the number 10 is very significant. Because in this video, I am going to tell you the history of the World Test Championship. We all say, right, that Test cricket is the ultimate pinnacle. It is the ultimate format. But did you know that it had to undergo 10 years of pain, cancellations, false dawns, just to ensure that you got a cycle in the first place? How did the ICC World Test Championship even get conceptualized? Well, it took a former great who is unfortunately not with us, who had the vision to make Test cricket much more relevant. It is in tribute to that great man that we present this video today, the history of the ICC World Test Championship. For that history, you have to rewind yourself to 2009, because we all know that the first cycle began in 2019, but it was in 2009 that this 10-year odyssey actually began. There were cancellations, false dawns until 2017, and finally, after all the clamoring and for all the bickering, the World Test Championship, the first cycle, was held in 2019 and 2021. But did you know who conceptualized the initial ICC World Test Championship? The late, great New Zealand batter and former skipper Martin Crowe. It was in 2009 when the ICC and the MCC met that Martin Crowe proposed this idea. Martin Crowe was a visionary that was beyond cricket. I mean, you remember in 2002, there was a match between India and New Zealand called the Supermax. Remember, down the ground, if you did, it would have been a 12. There were some weird innovations at that time in that India versus New Zealand match in Auckland. But 2002, when Crowe visualized the Supermax, it laid the base for T20 cricket. Similarly, in 2009, Martin Crowe laid the foundation for what would be an ICC World Test Championship. Why was the idea mooted? Because Test cricket needed to be much more relevant. With the onslaught of T20 leagues and white ball cricket, Test cricket was starting to lose its relevance. It was at that starting point that Crowe mooted, let us have an idea of a World Test Championship cycle. Now, in 2010, there were discussions between the ICC. The ICC held its annual meeting, and in that, they decided that a quadrennial event would have been planned, a 4-year cycle, wherein teams would play for 4 years, and then there would be the top 4 teams, they would play a semi-final and then a final. That was how the initial format of the World Test Championship was slated to be. As I had mentioned, 4 years. The top 8 teams at that time, because remember, Afghanistan and Ireland had still not yet gotten test ratings. So, top 8 teams play each other over a 4-year cycle. Then top 4 qualify for the semi-final, and then you had the final. This ICC World Test Championship would replace the Champions Trophy. That was the initial idea, because everybody had said that there would be only one trophy for one format. So that is why the Champions Trophy was going to be eliminated, and from that period onwards, from 2013, you would have a 4-year World Test Championship cycle. But what happened? In 2011, the ICC dropped a bombshell when they said it is cancelled. The World Test Championship idea, it was cancelled until 2017. Now, what happened in that? The first major detriment was financial problems for the England and Wales Cricket Board at that time. Yes, because they wanted to visualize a test format, the logistics, the broadcasting and all the other things, they were very, very conservative on that, and that is why the ECB could not present a financially viable model to telecast the World Test Championship cycle. Broadcast and sponsor commitments, but what was it for? White ball cricket. ODIs and T20Is were garnering in the big bucks. Champions Trophy and World Cups, T20 leagues all combined to ensure that Test cricket would be pushed to the sidelines for a big period of time. And because earlier the boards had committed a certain number of broadcast and sponsorship, that was the reason why slotting in a World Test Championship was not viable. And because of the white ball surge and broadcast commitments, they could scrap the World Test Championship. There was one more small problem at that point in time. India. Not because of finance, not because of all the other things. They were worried that if India did not qualify for the semi-final, because at that time their ratings were really, really low. They had not done well in England, they had not done well in Australia, they had not done well in South Africa. At that point, around 2011, 2012, India were not guaranteed qualification for the semi-final. If India were not there in the knockouts, there would be no viewership. And that was the reason why the ICC made a decision that do not have the World Test Championship until 2017. But then what changed? After all the bickering, after all the logistics, with everybody, with most of the fans agreeing that Test cricket was the ultimate format, the first World Test Championship was played. That cycle began from 2019 to 2021, and it was fitting that the Ashes started the 2019 to 2021 cycle. 5 Test series, cricket's oldest rivalry between two fierce rivals, England and Australia, they were going to go head to head, and boy did it live up to it. 2019 was the start of a glorious cycle, but then in 2020, COVID hit the world. And because of that, World Test Championship series were hit, especially in Bangladesh, especially in South Africa. Strict quarantine rules meant that Australia and New Zealand, you couldn't play most of them. England were also ravaged by the coronavirus situation. So was India. What do you do? Now, the teams that had won, they had all gotten certain amount of points. For example, in a 2-match series, the team that won would get 60 points. But then, the ICC later on realized that having the point system, that too when series have been impacted by COVID, no fault of the teams, would be very unfair. So it was during the COVID situation that the ICC World Test Championship began changing from the point system to the percentage point system, the PCT. And it all began from the India versus Australia series. So that is the reason why from points criteria changed to PCT due to COVID-19. It was felt that yes, if you judge the teams based on points, it would be unfair to the other teams who had lost out due to COVID. Because of this PCT, Australia may have had more points, but their percentage was low, and that is why India and New Zealand reached the final. And we all know what happened in the final. Even there was a conundrum in the 2021 final, because traditionally it was going to be hosted at Lord's, but because Lord's did not have a biosecure venue, that was the reason why it was shifted to Southampton. We all knew the reason why Southampton was chosen, because the hotel was at the ground itself, and because of that, facilities, logistics, biobubble maintenance would have been important. Ground was biobubble secure, and Lord's missed out due to COVID-19, and in a match that was ruined for 4 days by rain, 3 to 4 days, the match went into a reserve day, and New Zealand managed to beat India, and they became the first ICC World Test champions. it was fitting that Kane Williamson's Black Caps got it, because nice teams often finish last, not in this case. So, in 2021, after the success of the 2019-21 period, the ICC World Test Championship now is going to be a regular 2-year cycle. From 2021 to 2023, the culmination has come now. India and Australia will play at the Oval. The 2025 final will be played at Lord's. Always we have wanted Lord's to host a particular test final. In 2025, that dream might be achieved. So, India and Australia will square off at the Oval. India are high on momentum because they have beaten Australia 4 consecutive times in the Border Gavaskar Trophy. The Oval will host 2023 final, Lord's will host the 2025 final, and we hope it is a thrilling final, because World Test Championship, it needs good teams to put on a great show, and in a neutral country, the conditions are kind of even Stevens for both the teams. So for 10 years, Test cricket struggled against the onslaught of T20 and white ball cricket. But in 2019-21, red ball cricket came back with a vengeance, and now you have a dedicated Test Championship structure, for which we need to thank the ICC for it and most of the boards for cooperating with it. Yes, there are flaws, like for example, Zimbabwe, Afghanistan and Ireland are not part of the World Test Championship cycle. Then why did you give them test status in the beginning then? So all these minor flaws can be overworked on it, but yes, we are glad that a World Test Championship is there. It gives much more relevance to Test cricket. Thank you so much, folks, for joining us for the special live. We'll be back with more updates on sports today. Tap that bell icon so you know when we go live, and don't forget we are on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram as well. Thank you.